the Louis Vuitton in Japan, there was this very obvious thing of we have this legacy that is very meaningful. Like there are long-standing brands, but for Louis Vuitton, like the inherent essence of it was the magic to the brand. In your to your well put a point, you can't just stand on that and hope everybody plays along and stays interested forever. So that was like an that was a pretty obvious tension point. The need to innovate, but the preciousness of this legacy. What are some less obvious signals of tension that marketers could look out within their brand? Because reputation and innovation is a great place to start. What were the other places that maybe you saw some friction or opportunity in Louis Vuitton and other brands that you've
Yeah.
worked?
Well, I think when you are at the point of representing some of the world's best brands, right? Number one in your category, it is rough. It is competitive. You are fighting for every decimal of market share, right? You gotta love it. I always say to
Mm-hmm.
my students, how many people played sports? Because if you played sports, you've got that drive of,
Yes.
wanting to win. And hopefully you played team sports because that's even more similar to running an organization. So, there's always the tension with the market, and there's the tension with trying to keep your number one spot or improve it, right, through market share. And so there's always going to be a tension between last year from your own history of last year's sales, this year's sales, next year's sales, and then there's always the tension with your competitors,
Mm-hmm.
right? So watching what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing and seeing where they're going. And one of the things I would tell my team is our number one job is to protect our brand, right? We need everyone's eyes on the market, on what people are doing, because everyone's trying to take you down.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Real talk though.
it's kind of fun to be able to like take down a really big brand, find their weaknesses. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to be our brand champions, and our soldiers. But our second job is to be a half step ahead of culture.
Oh, I love that.
A half step.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why? Because if you're a full step, you're too far out in front. And
Yep.
I know because I have done that. I have come up with some ideas that I thought were amazing. And I think they were. But my problem is the market wasn't quite there.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't do them. And I was always very frustrated. And actually, the brand continued to do it sometime, and I'd moved on. So
Gotcha.
I think the ideas were valid, but we didn't do them because we were too far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're too far ahead, as I said, you're out of step with the market. But if you're a full step behind that little space, you're leaving it open for a competitor. So you need to be a half step ahead of the market.
I love that. I love that. And honestly, staying right up with culture, you start kind of losing who you are, and you are just that trend and you are just that gimmick. If you are trying to like, me too up here, like in every cultural moment, that like, yeah, that it becomes less of you and more of just what you're seeing and trying to mimic that. Where staying one step ahead of culture, you need to bring your curiosity. You need to bring that little bit of a predictive thing, that instinct that's where it's leading you. And I love it. I've never heard that said like that before, but I think it's absolutely a perfect way to look at that.
Yeah. I might add that as you're looking at culture, you can't just grab culture in any way. You have to do it through the prism of the brand.
Yes.
So this is where I think investing in your teams to truly understand your brand, all that work you do in terms of the history and the legacy and the storytelling internally, that pays back in volumes because good ideas come from everywhere. It can be a frontline person in a store or someone doing your social media feed or an engineer who might come up with the next big idea if they truly understand the values of the brand and can think about all the different ways that brand can come to life in culture.